Right. And we are back. And, if you already watched the intro of this episode, we already got your streaming count and your play count. So fuck you if you leave right now. We've got what we wanted from you. Told you, John, we're not altruistic. But if you're here and you've seen the episode title and you haven't just come for the latest stuff of the week, we're going to be talking about a guy who passed away just over a year ago, over the past week, which was Daniel Dumoulin, also known as MF Doom or Doom to most people. Most people just know him as Doom. He also has other monikers that we're going to get into. I think he passed away from, was it cancer or something like that?
I still don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, there are rumours flying around of what it could have been, but he was such a private guy that...
Yeah. And even getting into that, right? So he died in October, and I think his wife didn't announce it until like Christmas or like New Year's Eve, something like that, right? Which is very Doom-esque, right? Just before you're about to celebrate another year, you kind of shout at most underground hip hop, well, most hip hop heads in general, with the news that Doom is dead, right? That's just crazy.
Yeah.
So he, I don't know what age he died. I assume
I think it was early 50s, very early 50s. Yeah.
Obviously, the guy's well known for his works with Madlib, with the kind of classic Madvillain, but also the whole era in the early 2000s where he dropped a whole bunch of tapes, which we're again going to get into. So this episode, kind of a more of a looking back, remembering who he was. We've been to this episode for a long time. I just think, one, not the time. But I think, just have an episode kind of just look back on his career, just kind of giving our flowers, really, because he was someone who, even if you're not the biggest underground fan, you don't even have to be an underground fan. I think his influence on the hip hop world is so vast, it's so apparent. It's someone you just have to kind of talk about. So yeah,
he's definitely one of those few characters in the music industry who, like you're saying, whatever you listen to, you will appreciate the music. I don't think I've ever met anyone that goes, I don't really like that, or I'm not really a fan of Doom. Doesn't matter what you're into, even if you're not a hip hop fan. You're like, I listen to rock. Yeah, you will enjoy a Doom song. Yeah. And
I think he's one of the few people who has the title of like your favorite rapper's favorite rapper, right? Because I think a lot of rappers, like, they're huge fans of Doom, or like even the mainstream ones, even the Drakes of the world, right? I think even just looking back on that, a little bit of an aside, it was really weird how people were so surprised that Drake posted the Madvillain color when Drake has sampled MF Doom before in his mixtapes, before any of his albums. So it's not like this was a huge surprise, but that's what I'm saying. Like, his kind of appeal, it stretches way more than just Most Defs or the Rock Masters of the world or the L Sweatshirts. It's like the whole rap game. It was for a long time before the internet. It's like an unspoken secret. Like, oh, like, I listen to rap, but do you listen to Doom? Like, it's one of those things. Like, it was like anime before it was cool, right? Like, everyone watched it, but we can't do it in our own private time.
It's like one of those, those like speakeasies. Did you go to that bar in Nottingham, the one that like looked like Boiler Room, but then had like a secret bar on the back?
No, I never went to this. Fine.
Yeah, I feel like that's the equivalent, right? Talking music, and then they're like, they mention Doom, and you both give each other a look, and you're like, right, there's another room around the real talk's in there. But yeah, kind of talking about Daniel Dumoulin, obviously, his early career, he was in a group called KMD, standing for Causing Much Damage. They released a couple of projects. The first was in 1991, but he kind of joined them in 89, called Mr. Hood. They followed that up with what they were planning to release as Black Bastards. The label didn't really like the artwork for it. I think it was a picture of like a guy in the stocks or in a noose. They said it was a bit too like controversial, coarse, I guess, like stylistically. So I think they kind of left the label and self-released it anyway. And then just a bunch of things happened with the group. Sub Rock died. I think it was in a car crash. And then obviously Doom, at that time known as Sevlov X, kind of disappeared from the music scene in the early 90s for basically almost a decade until 1999, where he obviously reincarnates as MF Doom.
Just a bit of a comment there. So I think with the Black Bastards tape, I think it didn't. So obviously Sub Rock, again, if you listen to our episodes, so A Tribe Called Quest shouted them out on the Low End Theory. I think it was fucking Q-Tip. Like, Sub Rock is in the house, like, it's one of those things. I think it's at the end of like Jazz We've Got or something like that. So they had like a name, like I think they were somewhat like in the perimeter of the whole native tongues kind of movement, stuff like that. If you want to kind of get a feel of the music they were making at the time. So the thing about Black Bastards was it was going to release, but then his brother died. So his brother died actually before it was released, and then it didn't release until I think like 10 years later, so like early 2000s. I don't think it released till then. I think Spotify won't be able to show you that, because I think the Ducks came out recently. But yeah, so that's kind of what happened, right? So the album was kind of, they were going to release themselves, and then Sub Rock died, and then they just kind of shelved it for the time. Yeah.
And obviously they were brothers as well.
Yeah.
If you didn't know that. They were brothers. There were two other members in the group as well. Rodan and then Onyx, the Birthstone Kid, as the fourth member. But yeah, they're obviously then big hiatus until kind of 1999, when he obviously came in and dropped Operation Doomsday, which, yeah, obviously if you're not that familiar with MF Doom, was quite something given the kind of rap that was around at the time. Just not just in terms of like image and artwork and the lack of like image himself, but also in terms of what he was talking about, like the rhyming and rhyme schemes, just everything about the project was so anti late 90s. We did an episode where we kind of went into early 2000s and talked about like the bling era being really big, and that's obviously why Doom was such a like an outlier in the industry. But yeah, before we kind of get into some of the albums, let's kind of talk about like what specifically was it about Doom that just made him so special. We briefly touched on like the bling era and the idea of like image, but yeah, do you want to kind of take us away with a bit of that?
So I think I'll start with me personally. I think for me, what kind of stood out to me about Doom, I think, again, just kind of context, the first tape I listened to was Madvillain. I think for most people, I'm not going to be one of those people. Like, I kind of went where everyone else went first. But I think one thing that kind of surprised me is, one, how funny he is. But he's got that humor, even though another funny thing about him is like, obviously he's British born, but obviously he doesn't have any recollection of living in England. So he's actually never had American citizenship, even though living mostly life in America. So I think even despite that, his humor is very British in terms of like, it's quite deadpan, and it kind of hit, like he's not trying to be, it's not like he's trying to be like, this is a funny part, here it comes. He just kind of says it, and it's like, oh, you catch it, that's really funny. And I didn't really see people do that before. I hadn't really seen it much in the music I was listening to at the time. I was like, oh, this is quite interesting. So that's one. And then two, I think for most people, including myself, is his flow, right? Like his flow is absolutely insane. Like, I don't think there are many people who can have the rhyming patterns that Doom has. Keep, even your Biggie to the world. I know people are like, oh my gosh, Biggie's got the best flow. Yes, Biggie's got an amazing flow. I'm not denying that. But Doom's flow is like, it's so unique. Like, it feels like it's not even like planned. It feels very sporadic, but if it's on beat at the same time, it's really weird. And the way he kind of like goes in and out of these flows. And sometimes it feels like he's talking, but he's not talking. And he was singing around, like, it's really weird. I've never seen anything like it. So I think that kind of stands out to people a lot, I would assume.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we'll talk about like his production and stuff later as well. But just as in terms of like an all-rounded artist, like music, like musicality and everything, he just had it, because like you're saying, he can switch up from kind of like talking to like spoken word to rapping to kind of singing and through the skits and whatnot. He just is able to like jump in and out of whatever and switch up his flow, switch up his rhyming scheme at just like a moment's notice, and then jump straight back in again. Like such a ridiculously versatile rapper. And all whilst just not breaking a sweat is ridiculous. But yeah, in terms of like shunning the spotlight as well, really odd for a figure in the late 90s. And then obviously we talked about that kind of spurt of albums in 2003, 2004. Image being literally everything at the time. You think about that early era of like kind of early to mid 2000s, massive R&B, neo, everyone just kind of like all about image. Yeah, I kind of consider. Go on.
Even to add to that, right? Like, think we're in 2021. So Operations Doomsday came out like what 22 years ago, something like that. So
2000.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So imagine now in 2021 when you see an anonymous account which has like a fucking avi of like a fucking anime girl or football player, you just think that guy's a bit of a weirdo or he's probably a bit of a cunt. So imagine doing that in real life in the 90s where all these things that would probably get you quote unquote cancelled are alive and kicking. Like, you know what I mean? It's probably not a good way to.
And you listen to their song and you're like, why the hell is this guy rapping about Power Rangers and Mutant Ninja Turtles? What's going on? This is not cool. But that's literally what Doom was. Like, he comes into the rap scene back after almost a decade out and is rapping about who knows what over like skits of Scooby-Doo and shit, and people are like, what the fuck is this? But here we are still talking about it. I might have said it on the podcast before, but I like to think of him as like the Daniel Day-Lewis of hip-hop.
You have
like,
said it,
yeah. That's a banger, that's why I'm saying it again.
No, that's true.
But yeah, fully, like, he just, in the way that Daniel Day-Lewis is like a serious method actor, like he would, I think when he was in a particular role, he obviously did Lincoln, he would like fully dress up as that character the whole way through filming, right until the last day of the rap. He would dress like him, he would talk like him. I think he even like sent letters he would write in a diary as if he was Abe Lincoln. Like, that's fucked.
Yeah.
Like, imagine being married to this guy or like dating this guy and be like, babe, like, it's okay, the cameras are gone, like, we can just talk. And he's like delivering a speech over dinner. Like,
you know what's funny, just in contrast to that, who was the guy who was James Bond before Daniel Craig?
Pierce Brosnan.
Fuck, I think it might have been him. There was one of the James Bonds, right, who's like, I think he had like a Scottish accent or like a quite northern British accent. Sean Connery, that's the fucking one. And you know what's so funny about Sean Connery, right? Because he would do films and he's technically just the same guy in every film. There was one film, I can't remember what the name was, where he was playing like some fucking Spanish guy, and it's like he still has a fucking British accent. It's like whatever. And people were just like, yeah, I totally believe he's a part of the Spanish group.
He's like, you knew what you were getting.
Yeah.
Cut that shit out with the Spanish accent.
And people still love him. So yeah, compared to like people who like fucking really go into it, that's what just reminded me.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hilarious. But yeah, so yeah, real like just fully invested himself into all of these different characters. And then obviously when he performs, keeps the mask on. Not that he doesn't break character, but he doesn't, in the sense that, you know, he keeps the mask on. I know people must have seen, especially with the 1 year anniversary of his death rolling around, those clips of Earl Sweatshirt and Tyler the Creator kind of meeting Doom at a concert and just seeing like the aura of this guy, like that two guys from Odd Future were like absolutely fanboying over Doom. There's definitely just like an aura about him, which I think just like the legend grows, as it were, as the years go by. But yeah, let's get into one of the personas, and I'll let you pick, and then we'll kind of talk a little bit about the albums.
Alright, cool. Yeah, just for context to the audience. So, thing about Doom. So most people know Daniel Dumoulin as Doom, and I think obviously that's kind of his main moniker. But he actually had a few other personalities or characters, you want to call them, that he operated under, which makes it a bit of a pain when you're trying to search them on Spotify because it's literally not under the same name. So you have obviously Doom, so the villain. I kind of see it as like hip hop's villain because it's so different to everything else at hip hop at the time. Then you got Viktor Vaughn, who is a young adolescent, from what I can gather.
Yeah.
And then you got King Geedorah, who is literally a 3-headed beast. Yes, you heard that correctly. Yeah. So I think that's all of them. And obviously a lot of the projects he has, even if he's working with our producers, is some sort of incarnation of this. I think most of the time it's always Doom. So obviously he had like JJ Doom, then he had the one with Bishop Nehru and Nehru Doom. Yeah. Then he had the one with Danger Mouse, Danger Doom. Yeah. So stuff like that. And obviously the one with Madvillain. So I think the one we should go on to, because I think one thing that people were surprised, like I think what will surprise people is that even though he has these different characters, there's still a lot of depth in those characters. Like he's not one of those guys who just does it for the sake of, I'm trying to like hide this album from people. No, like he fully goes in. Yes, it's the same voice, but the thing that is interesting about what he does is that he'll change his rate of rapping. He'll be more or less he'll be more animated or less animated, and he does all these little things, and then you realize, oh, this is kind of a different artist. Like it doesn't give you the same feel at all. So the one I want to go to first is Viktor Vaughn, because I feel that's the one where it's such a huge contrast to the other two kind of characters, and it's very surprising because we only got like one album from this technically, and
two.
Really? What's the second one?
The second one's called VV2, but it's not on streaming platforms.
Oh, okay, cool. So, we didn't get much of that.
Never heard it before, though.
Oh, okay, fair.
Never heard it, yeah.
And it's so wildly different. I feel like it's the closest thing you'll probably get to who probably Daniel Dumile really is as a person, I assume. So, yeah, let's talk about that one.
Yeah. So, obviously, Viktor Vaughn, Dumile talks about him as like a sophomore. He's like, he's kind of like a young, kind of like a young adolescent guy, kind of enjoying whatever like the new MCs are doing. That's why he kind of described it as like his younger, more spontaneous self. And, obviously the name itself it's not just by chance. It's like a derivation of Victor Von Doom, which is what Doctor Doom, MF Doom is from, the Marvel character. But yeah, entirely different character to Doom. Obviously, like we say, a much younger guy. Whereas Victor's kind of, he's down with the youngsters, as it were. And yeah, he's just a guy that enjoys like rapping for the fun of it. And yeah, he just wants to like talk about time travel and like sell drugs and rap and mug people in the street and just do whatever, and that's what all of the kind of like narratives are about throughout the album. I think one thing to note also is in terms of production, it's really key on the albums knowing how much he's invested into the production, and then obviously that's why my personal favorite album is probably this one.
What, Vaudeville Villain?
Yeah. Okay. Just in terms of like rapping ability, because the majority of the production is outsourced to I think it's RJD2 and King Honey and Max Bill, the three guys that kind of produce the majority of the album. It lets him just kind of focus on the raps, and I feel like you can definitely feel it on this album. Like it's just him at his like most like lyrically playful, and I think it's just him at his best. Yeah, like soundscape, I guess. What did you, and like soundscape and production and stuff? What do you feel from this album?
So this is the one that I feel like if you're because I'm coming from an origin of Madvillain, right?
Yeah.
And I think, okay, cool. If you liked that stuff, even though I think Doom in general is an acquired taste, if you like that stuff, you're here like, what type of room did I enter? Like, you kind of go from the pop room and then you're in like the house room.
An opium den.
Yeah.
It feels like that. Yeah, I'm not going to lie.
Like, what the hell? Like, so this one's like, in terms of production, I do like it, but it's so much more like boom bap and like, not hardcore, but it's more aggressive than Doom has ever been on. Do you know what I mean? So, so hearing this, I think for that reason, I think it's the most accessible. So I think that's why people would probably like this one the most, which is quite surprising that Madvillain's the one that everyone's like, listen to this one. But actually, if I wanted to get someone into the whole world of Mr. Dumile, I'd give him this one, because I think this one is way more recognizable in terms of the sound and the way he's rapping. So animated as Viktor Vaughn. Like, even just this, it's funny, he's funny across the board, but some of these songs are just so funny. So like stuff like what was the one where he's talking about like meeting a girl and then she basically let me watch. Well, so that one, and then obviously the one where he's basically a young guy like going to open mic, and I think he's so interesting, right? Because he plays these other characters, so he puts other people in there, and it's some sort of like projection or maybe how he feels about stuff or how he sees certain political things. So you see like the open mic one where the guy's kind of talking about the black stuff. It's like, we need to kind of come together and get someone on stage. It's like, but is that what he thinks? Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like we just need different aspects of his personality, and I think that's so interesting. And obviously you see Viktor Vaughn come up, I think on the second part of open mic, and it's like, okay, cool. Like, or just stuff talking about like robbing people, like you said, on a modern day mugging, or just kind of like, just being a bit of a degenerate. And this, I think it's just such a shift from Doom, where it's kind of more talk. He's a lot more introspective. He's a lot more kind of focused on people probably not being genuine to themselves as rappers and stuff.
Very
like that.
cynical as well.
Yeah,
like,
do you know what I mean? Whereas this one is like, don't get me wrong, he's still kind of judging things, but it's not from a perspective of I'm this guy in the rap game, and it's more just like, oh, I'm this guy rapping. I like rapping. And I'm here just fucking around. It kind of feels like he's fucking around in a sense, but he's not in terms of the skill. But he does feel like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think in terms of like, like sound is it's fit. I said Opium Dome. I read an article a while ago that said it was like, I can't remember the description. Something like, you've just stumbled into like a futuristic opium or like crack den, but like it feels like it's because of the
perfectly reasonable description,
like electronic, like because there are elements of like jazz and soul, but then like electronic, and it's really experimental in terms of like the sounds you're hearing. It feels like sometimes there's just like stuff shooting across in front of you, and like like distorted voices all over the place, and you're like trying to piece it all together. It's really interesting. Favorite songs, I think I love Lactose and Lecithin. I think that's probably my favorite on here. Saliva, really like playful lyrically. He says things like "True Victory, a New Sick Story. I never met a chick that was too thick for me."
Yeah, I like that line.
Yeah, and the one you referenced before, "Can I Watch?" Where he's like trading verses with a Pani B, and then there's like a female voice in the story as well.
That's such a good back and forth, by the way.
Repeat, she's like, "I'd rather masturbate than fuck with Vic Vaughn." And then Vaughn kind of responds, and he's like, "I wonder if she ever had a cootie cat 88. Vaughn can't wait to long stroke it on the late late." It's just, it's ridiculous, and it's funny, and it's I think it's just him. It's like his funniest, and also just like storytelling best.
Oh,
like you're saying, stories like it just, because the production's outsourced, it just lets him spin all of these narratives, and just rap for his life on here. It's brilliant.
And I think that's why it's the most kind of easiest to listen to, because it's not him just doing his weird shit on it. Even though there's a lot of skits here, like other thing, I think one thing about Doom, we're going to use that like the central character. One thing about Doom is that he throws in a shit ton of skits in like every album, but he's not lazy with it where he's just throwing it again and again. Obviously, this one's all like Viktor Vaughn. It's not like he's talking about Doom in any aspect, or it's not like he's. I don't think this one's even leaning on the whole comic book side of things. It's just kind of. It's just something. I feel like a lot of people look too deep into it, but I think it's just something he likes to do. I think he's just a guy who's a fan of comic books that's kind of letting that express in his music. That's how I see it. But in terms of songs, like Never Dead, love that song. Can I Watch? I like the way it begins as well. Overture and Vaudeville Villain. Holy shit, man. No, I think most of this tape is like, and it's not that long. It's only like 50 something minutes. So it's a nice, easy listen. I think it's the most. It's like it's not the thinking man's choice, It's not like, ooh, like, I'm sitting there, my little like smoke pipe, like, ooh, what's the best album? It's not that, but it's the one like, okay, cool. I'm riding around, I just pop it on, and it's like, okay, I can enjoy it.
I disagree with you in terms of it being the most accessible, because I think people will be like, what? If they've heard anything by Doom before, they'll hear this and be like, what is this dark shit?
But I think I
don't know whether they'll like it.
But I think in the world of like Tyler the Creator, Earl Sweatshirt, and all these things, even Griselda, I don't think this sound is so far off as like, oh, I can't get into this. Whereas I feel like if I hear a fucking, what do you call that thing? What is that thing? The accordion. If I listen to an accordion, I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, who really puts an accordion on a beat? So I mean, there's a difference there.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. But obviously go check out Vaudeville Villain. Absolutely incredible album. If you know of anyone that has a vinyl, give me a shout.
You ain't gonna get that.
vinylcollectivepod@gmail.com. So let's go with another character. On the complete opposite side of this, we have King Geedorah, where it's literally a complete flip of what we've talked about with Viktor Vaughn. Obviously, this was released a couple months prior to Viktor Vaughn, I believe. Same year, 2003. Which is nuts. That's actually crazy. Like, if we think about this, okay, so cool. He releases Madvillain, he releases King Geedorah, he releases Viktor Vaughn, and he releases Food within the span of just over a year. That's 4 unbelievable albums.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've ever had a run of that. I
don't think we have, and I think that's why
4 albums.
Yeah, I think that's why Doom's profile was so high. Like, people always do this, right? No, how can someone be the best when they haven't been around for like 50 years? It's like, whatever, man. Not everyone can be Jay-Z. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not that. It's just like the output that he had just during literally over a year or two. I don't think we've ever seen that, man. Like, ever.
Yeah, it's
ever.
nuts.
Like, it's insane. And the thing is, it's not like when people do this in general, they usually talk about the same thing. And don't get me wrong, you can still be good at doing that, like a Lil Wayne or a Freddie Gibbs. Like, sure, great, right? The guy was doing this, and he was a 3-headed monster. He was a fucking metal-faced bastard, and he was like a young degenerate. Like, and you can really dive into these worlds when you listen to these albums. Like, it's not half done, which is so surprising. So, part of me does feel like, just to put it back a little bit, part of me does feel like, were these like things he was sitting on whilst he was away? Because those, bear in mind, we're propping him up for this 1 year, but it was 4 years between Operations Doomsday and I think it was Viktor Vaughn. So
yeah,
could he have been working this past 4 years? Sure, but the fact that they all kind of came out within the span of a year, it's just kind of like, fucking hell, like you were definitely working your ass off those years, for sure.
Absolutely. But yeah, obviously King Geedorah, like Toppe said, 3-headed monster, and unlike Vaudeville Villain, with King Geedorah, Take Me to a Leader, the album's called, he completely flips it up. He takes control of the production, and he's very like content to sit behind the controls, as it were, and kind of like King Geedorah, I guess, like play the ultimate villain, having other people do your bidding for you. So he's kind of behind the controls. He produces the entire thing, and he only raps on, I think, 3 songs. There are like little skits where his voice is used, but I think he literally just raps on Phaser's The Final Hour and Antimatter. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like production-wise, it's impressive. It's very cool. There's like such a range as well. You get like on Antimatter, where he's rapping, you get kind of real like bluesy strummed guitars, and it's a very like understated instrumental, but you just get a sense of like this guy's range. But yeah, what kind of your interpretations of this album?
Very good production. That's literally what struck out to me. Good features as well. Like another thing to kind of point out about Doom is throughout his whole career, don't get me wrong, I think the only notable feature that I think he's had is on Demon Days with Gorillaz. I don't know if he's ever worked with big artists.
He's obviously done one with Sarface.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But even then, it's like in 2021, or even back then, it's not the biggest. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's quite low key. Like, in terms of like the amount of people who know him, the amount of people who would probably work with him, like a Mos Def, like a Common, probably, like a Drake potentially. He's never gone that way. Like he's never done it, from what I know.
I think on I will say, I think he did have some big features on Born Like This. I don't know if you've heard that album. He has Raekwon and Ghostface Killer on it.
Oh, okay, fair.
So that's the outlier in terms of like his album. Yeah. So yeah, Raekwon's on one of the, I've forgotten what track it is, and then he also has a song produced by Jay Dilla. But you're completely right. Like otherwise, it's just he has these like underground guys like MF Grimm, who we've seen a few times. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
No, so I'm saying, like, even when he's featured on like a big person's album, like let's say big, we're saying big, like IDK, it's not really a verse. Do you know what I mean? It's never that. Like, he doesn't actually come out and do, even with the Gorillaz one, he didn't do like a full-on verse. Like, he's not that. He's very in-house, and the people he puts on, a lot of these people have never heard their shit, don't know who the fuck they are, but somehow he puts them on these albums and it works. And that's even talking about King Geedorah, right? The thing about Doom that's so underrated, I believe, and I think it's kind of when we get to Madvillain, it will be more apparent. The thing that's so underrated about this guy, he's a fucking sick producer, mate. Like, he is such a good, like, he is a ridiculously good producer. Like, if he never raps, I still like his beats. So listen to this, it's like, holy shit. Like, one that really got me was what was it, Crazy World with Gigan. The guy was just going off the whole time. It's like, holy shit. I thought it was Emmett Grimm for a second. But it's like, yeah, like there's so many of these songs, it's like you almost forget Doom's not even there, because it's like you don't even need it, because the whole story, because obviously Geedorah was the nemesis to Godzilla, if people don't know the reference. Nowadays, John, this is how fucking old we are. That's a boomer reference. The kids don't know Godzilla like that.
It's true.
Wait, have they had Dwayne Johnson do a Godzilla film? They must have. I feel like they must have done that. Anyways, someone's got to check that. But yeah, like I think, yeah, just him kind of putting these people on and just being there, here and there, and you kind of listen to like this monster that's invading this world, and he's gonna take over, and then the humans are like, "Have you seen something like that?" That's the part that gets me so often. It's like, when you're listening to a Doom album, it feels like you're putting something on TV at like 1 o'clock and you've missed school. It's like a cartoon on like Sky or something. That's how it feels sometimes. So you're really immersed in the story, like, oh, like this monster's come down, the humans don't know what to do with it. Is it gonna work with it? Is it not? All that stuff. Like, I just think it's mad interesting. It's one of the weirdest projects he has, but I think production wise, it's also one of the most interesting as well. So yeah, it's
true. I think that's probably one of the most underrated. Well, not underrated. I think maybe unacknowledged by the casual listener, should we say, of Doom, is that he's a rapper first, and Madvillain was Madlib going crazy on the production and Doom going crazy on the rapping, which is true. But like we see with this, like we see with Operation Doomsday, like we see with Food, like the guy he's probably a producer first, like, because with the kind of the other character we haven't yet really mentioned was obviously Metal Fingers, which is like his production moniker. So he has all of these like Special Herbs albums, which is just all of his instrumentals, and there's like more than 8 or 9 volumes of that. Obviously a lot of those instrumentals are what he's then used going forward on his rapping albums. But yeah, like the guy, don't forget he's a producer rapper. Like, he does both
in every sense,
equally as well.
Yeah,
like you can't discount the production one bit. So that run was crazy. And then obviously the third character is MF Doom. Let's give them a bit of background first, though, to kind of like where the names come from. So like we said with Viktor Vaughn, Dr. Viktor Von Doom, aka Dr. Doom, was like this like politician in the like Marvel universe, and he was like a monarch, like supreme leader for the kingdom of Latveria. And his he obviously appears, I think the first one he appears in was like a Fantastic Four comic, and like in a deal with the devil, his mum like sacrifices or like sells her own soul so that he can become this this like future ruler, basically. It's crazy when you like read the background. You're like, this guy is just this is so idiosyncratic. Like, he's taken this whole Marvel character and just like shaped it, and just decided to like run with it. It's crazy.
And part of me does wonder, like, did he intend for this to last this long? Because there must have been a point where he's like, oh, you know what, I'm a bit tired, like, I'm done with it now. And it became such a thing. It's like, actually, I can't take this shit off now, can I? Like, and even now, even if people want to admit it or not, like, if we look at a lot of these guys in the drill scene now, like V9 wearing the Black Deadpool mask, stuff like that. Where do you think that all comes from, mate? Like, it all trickles down.
Don't get it twisted.
So I think what's so interesting about this one, because obviously the Doom character has been in the whole Marvel universe. I think he's in like Fantastic Four mainly. He's been in some of the Spider-Man ones as well. If you want to go check that out, a lot of these videos or episodes, you can actually find them on YouTube. So if you want to just watch them, I know that's the thing, everyone has to act like they're into nostalgia. Like, they'll beg for all these shows to come on like Disney Plus and never fucking watch them. But if you want to watch like some like 80s Spider-Man, stuff like that, it's all there actually. So I think this is also the character people come to know and love. And I think it's just funny because, like, when you say Doom now, people think the rapper, they don't even think the character, which is so it kind of just shows you how much I guess how prolific something like this was at the time, in a sense. how to describe Doom.
A boomer.
Yeah,
A bit of a boomer in a sense.
yeah, definitely a bit of a boomer. I'll say, yeah. No,
Yeah.
expand on that.
In the sense that he's kind of he laments what's hot, like he laments popular culture and popular rap, and obviously a lot of the kind of comedy tracks on Food, where he is specifically on like Rap Snitches and those kind of songs where he's just like mocking the like drug dealer rappers or like the criminal rappers. He's definitely a boomer. He's like he understands he won't ever be like appreciated for what he does, and he just like lays into it. It's like these like joke rappers, like, you know. So yeah, in that sense, definitely a bit of a boomer.
Fair. I think with him as well, I think one thing, and if you look back on his catalogue, right, I think it's a lot more apparent. So I think when he started out, even in both Viktor Vaughn and MF Doom, he was rapping a lot faster. And then, one thing I like about Operation Doomsday cover, we're going to just go for the whole timeline. If you look at the drawing one, not the other one where it's like his face, it looks like he's looking at the mic and being like, "Oh shit, am I gonna do this?" Like it's one of the most interesting covers I think I like in hip hop that I enjoy, right? Because it kind of looks like, oh, like because he's been gone for so long, he's looking at his mic like, oh, am I gonna do this? Like, this is the kind of path I'm gonna go down, right? And I feel like it's one of those characters that it took him a bit of time to refine, but I think once he got it, he really got it, man. Like when you get to Food and Madvillain, it felt like he knew exactly, especially Madvillain. I feel like that whole combination with Madvillain kind of allowed him to know exactly what he wanted this character to be. He slowed down, he's rapping a lot, became a lot more, I guess, direct and focused. And it led to this like, it added to this whole villain aesthetic, right? Because like the way he looked in covers, his covers are usually quite fun and lighthearted. And you get this Madvillain one, and it's just straight serious. He's got this dark kind of like profile in his face. It's like, what the fuck? Yeah. So I think just seeing that character evolve over time, I think if maybe, obviously I don't know, maybe as I started out, oh, this is just some fun stuff. And I think when he actually refined and honed on the character, it was just like, again, very, what's the word? What is the word I'm looking for? He was just very cynical. That's it. Very cynical guy. Yeah. Kind of looking at the rap game like, oh, like, you know, like I really work my rhymes. Like I really work these syllables, and you guys just kind of jumping on what's hot. Kind of touched. And then I think this was the most concept focused side of Doom. If you look at Food, look at Madvillain, things of that nature. This is the one that the other ones was kind of like just rapping, quote unquote. Where this one's like, oh, I have a topic in mind, or I have a theme in mind. I'm gonna attack it for the whole time. Yeah.
And like you said, as well, just as like a general, like what did Doom want to do? Like he said that there are different topics besides murdering everybody. That seems to be, he said, like, this is a quote, that seems to be the in thing. How many people can you murder on a record? So I'm bringing it back to the old, bragging about how nice you are with the words. Yeah. He said that in 2003. So yeah, so like being the cynical guy, but at the same time, still putting distance between himself and the kind of scene. Yeah. But yeah, like obviously with Madvillain, the connection is unmatched. You've obviously mentioned Madlib already doing the beats for it, doing some of his best work that he's ever done, 100%. And challenging Doom as well. Because the production's very different. Obviously when you hear Doom producing, and this isn't pitting them against each other, it's just stylistically they're different. It's a lot of like, it's more loop stuff that that Doom is using, whereas with Madlib, like the songs generally like cut and move, and it's constantly evolving. The song is constantly progressing. Whereas with, I think when you look at like Bandana Pinata, it's a lot more loop. It's a lot more like loop stuff, but it's really kind of like disjointed and that on Madvillain. Yeah. Yeah. So they're just like properly challenging each other. It's like, yeah. So the two best guys doing, yeah. I don't think we get an album like that again.
Definitely not.
Where just the producer is going ham and the rapper is just rapping 100% as well. I don't know if it'll.
I mean, this is Voltron essentially. Like this is like, because the thing is, part of me, I don't think I've actually checked the production credits for this one. But there's no way he doesn't produce only one track. Holy shit! Because the thing is, like, it feels like this one is so ridiculous because it felt like Madlib it felt like he knew he wanted to do this before he even did it with Doom. Like he just, and that's one thing I liked about Madlib, right? I feel like he has a good eye for a guy who has talent but hasn't really maxed it out yet. Obviously, you see with Freddie Gibbs. And I think he saw like, okay, you're 80% of the way there, or maybe 90% of the way there, but let me get you to like 95, 98. And boy, did he do it on this one. Like the production is so clean on this one, man. So clean. It's not, I'm not going to be one of those guys like, oh, this is the most popular one, but this is my favorite. Like this is the most popular and it's my favorite. The rapping's incredible. The beats are incredible. Even the ones that just have, like stuff like Sick Fit, there's no rapping on that. It's just amazing. Do you know what I mean? Or even ones where Madlib's rapping himself. Like I just feel like I think Madlib fully bought into the idea. And I think that's just allowed Doom to kind of focus more on rapping because he didn't have to do much to add to the aesthetic. Madlib already said, okay, cool, I'm going to use these beats, I'm going to really make it what you want. And all you have to do is rap.
Yeah.
To be honest.
And just like, so that people can get kind of an idea of because we've talked to producers and stuff before, especially, talking to Nicholas Craven last week about kind of people that produce using vinyls or like the MP3s of vinyls. Like it's a crazy skill to have, but on this it just it feels like it's gone way beyond because the guy's like he's sampling things from like snippets of like Street Fighter. Or like Brazilian bossa nova songs. He's sampling Stevie Wonder. Like he's just everything. Like the guy, I can't understand how big his record collection must have been. But
and you gotta remember that I think they made a lot of this in Brazil, like just in some random place in Brazil. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and obviously Madlib has always been very enigmatic in that sense in terms of how he makes beats because it just feels like he's just strange. Like. He feels like he's one of those guys who I feel like he truly does draw inspiration from everything. He made the No More Parties in LA beat on his fucking iPad or something like that. Do you know what I mean? He's one of those guys. But yeah, this one is like Jesus. And I will say this now, since we're how many minutes in, I'm not too sure. But one thing, I feel like I try to treat Doom like Michael Jackson, where it's like, I've heard good things about this guy up until this point. So I'm not going to venture the boat out further from here. So this is kind of where like my MF Doom journey kind of like ends because everything before this is like, yeah, I'm with it. We haven't even talked about Food, which we should talk about in a bit. But like stuff like Born Like This or the JJ Doom or all that stuff, I was like, nah, because I kept hearing he's not even on it like that. Do you know what I mean? Like he's not even on the album like that. I was like, fuck that then. I'm not doing that. So yeah, before we even touch on that, I know you have
what you don't know can't hurt you.
Exactly. Before we go into that, what do you think of the other album, which has been quite highly revered and probably his most sampled is in Food?
Yeah, so in Food, along with Vaudeville Villain, I'd say even maybe more so is a funnier album.
Yes,
like definitely his most playful stuff. Like an album where he wasn't even necessarily wanting to tell narratives like that he was in Vaudeville Villain, but he just wanted to like make jokes, tell funny one-liners, talk about like the mundane shit that you talk about in like in the bar with your friend about like weed, women, money, food, etc., etc. And obviously if people don't understand Food, obviously a play on using the same letters from MF Doom. As well as, referencing food. So yeah, just switching those letters around. I think it's just brilliant. Like there are so many, I think one of my favorite songs is One Beer. Mm-hmm. Obviously using I love a good sample. Yeah. Using the Cortex sample. I'm going to butcher this. It's a French song. Chanson d'un jour d'hiver, which is also sampled by, Lupe Fiasco on Mural, that long 9-minute song.
Okay.
The same sample.
Okay.
But obviously on Mural, he just like loops it back again. Funny story, when I was back doing my dissertation, a couple of years ago, I was listening to Cortex just on repeat their album. So I do recommend going and listening to them. But yeah, that particular song, only a few people have sampled it. So yeah, Lupe, Doom, and I think a couple of other people. But yeah, almost entirely self-produced by Doom. That one was produced by Madlib. So you might question whether that was a bit of a leftover from Madvillain.
One bit, yeah. Fair,
Yeah.
potentially.
But yeah, almost completely produced by him. Very like jazz heavy. The skits are hilarious.
Yes.
Like it's just, yeah. There are so many quotables from here. I know we'll probably trade a couple in a second, but yeah. What did you think of Food?
I love it. I think it's in terms of concept album, it's probably my favorite one. I'm not saying it's the best, but it's probably my favorite one because it really is about food. Like it is, but he's also tied in all these interesting topics about friendship, about even just talking about the food. Like, you know, if you don't know the additives in your food, just throw it away. And it's like, it's kind of true. It is true. I mean, it's like, because there's like a run in the middle where it literally is just talking about food. It kind of starts off like filet o wrapper. Poop up platter, right? And it goes into all these types of food from around the world and all this stuff like that. I know it's weird because I think, and this is the thing about Doom albums, right? And this is why I think he's in a quiet taste, because you're gonna go into these albums thinking, right, it's gonna be some rap shit, and it's not that, right? It's not that, because half of Doom albums are just gonna be skits, and you know, you just gotta go, you gotta ride with that, and it's like, yeah. But at the same time, I'm not a fan of skits usually, but sometimes I just leave it on. I'm just like, oh, this is interesting. It just feels like I'm watching TV, and I'm not. It just gives me that feeling. Yeah. But one song I really like is Hoe Cakes. If you are a fan of Drake, which I'm pretty sure you are, if you go to comeback season, Think Good Thoughts, you would recognize that sample. If you like, there's one more. I think it's One Beer. That is Poop Up Platter. Sorry, that is a sampled by Joey Badass on World Domination on his 1999 mixtape. So yeah, I mean, there's very, very late ones. Obviously, Rap Snitch Knishes. I think most people like that song. Just kind of like I was saying, just kind of relating food to people, mainly friends, rap game, relationships, stuff like that. Yeah. So Hoe Cakes, women. Deep fried friends, kind of talking about, like, you know, some friends, like, obviously fried food is like really cheap, it's really quick. Deep fried friends kind of talking about, oh, you know, some friends are you know, they're here when everything's good, but they, you know, they can discard you easily, and those type of friends should be easy discardable, stuff like that. And obviously Rap Snitch Knishes talking about people like, you know, telling on their own shit. Like, I think that's one of the most outside of Madvillain, it's probably the most notable song he has, to be fair. But yeah, I will say in terms of like the amount of bangers, obviously not as many, but I think the whole idea, I really do enjoy it, to be fair. Yeah. As a concept, it's brilliant. Yeah. Let's share we've got to share a couple of quotes, haven't we? Let's have a look. So obviously, there's so many. Vomit Spit. Okay. Which I think is one of the best produced tracks on here. It's like a real like 70s funk joint. I think it's the second to last track on Food. He'd rather eat a sand sandwich salad. It might need salt, just like your man's bland ballad. Like, he just, I don't know how he does it. The guy's just, he has ridiculous vocabulary as well. But yeah, just you can do the Rap Snitches one. We both. No, I wasn't going to talk about that. Yeah. No. Yeah, it's like rap snitches telling all their business, sit up in the court, they'll be their own starting witness. Do you see the perpetrator? Yeah, I'm right here. Sit around and get the whole record label set up for years. If you like Mos Def, there's a great video which you should go and watch on YouTube, which is of him just sitting in the studio, just rapping MF Doom lyrics. Like you say, your favourite rapper's favourite rapper, literally. These guys love him. Yeah, it's just certain funny things he does, like I don't know, like Keep My Eye on Her, don't really trust her, but I treat her like a daughter, taught her how to bust a nut, and he turned to beef like horse meat chalupa. Like, even the metaphors and like wordplay he's using throughout this album is all related to food. Or like you know, what he said, another one where he's like I think on the same song where he's like Doom was always known to keep the best girls back bent. Some say it's the eye, some say it's the accent. A lot of guys wonder where the stacks went. I called her thunder thighs with a fatty swirl. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, he said just like, it's just funny. And the way he kind of plays with the sample, this one has like the whole super kind of thing going throughout the whole thing. Yeah, I think Hoe Cake's probably my favorite song outside of Rap Snitch Knishes. So, that's fair.
But yeah, absolutely brilliant. Like we say, there was obviously Born Like This, which was released in 2009, I believe. Again, a lot of it's a very un-Doom-like album in terms of, he's outsourcing some of the production, but he's got a lot of features. Obviously, the big ones being what did I say? Was it Raekwon and Ghostface Killer? He's got a J Dilla production, Madlib produces something. But yeah, I'd say don't start with that. Start with the other ones. There are definitely some absolutely banging instrumentals on that album. I'm trying to think of what to recommend people if they listen to a couple of tracks of that. I think Lightworks is a good, well produced. I think Cells 1 and 2, they're very cool. They're kind of in the middle of the album. But yeah, it's definitely not the most accessible album. I'd go for like a concept-y one first, and then kind of move through the discography.
Which kind of moves me on to what I was going to say after, because obviously, as John mentioned, it was like a 5-year, not hiatus, I say that, but in terms of like his own work, he didn't really do much. And even after Born Like This, he didn't really have another solo project after that. I know Madlib was dying to get him to do another Madvillain. I think he even used Freddie Gibbs to kind of tease him out and be like, okay,
100%.
Yeah, I think he even said, because obviously he did, because obviously I think a lot of people are like, oh, is really Freddie and Madlib the best duo? And I think he said, okay, let's kind of get him out.
And Freddie was definitely like, I did it better.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which,
didn't care.
obviously, like, if most rappers are competitive, right? So you would have thought, okay, something's come around the corner. Obviously, who knows, man? That could have been the case later on. But obviously, he passed away. But I think one thing to say, so obviously there's a 5-year hiatus. Don't get me wrong, you've hit the pinnacle of your I guess appeal, right? Obviously, and again, more people grow to know you as time goes on because you're like a key landmark in hip hop, right? So I think there is something to be said in terms of like, did he let his foot off the pedal a bit? Like, he just kind of be like, you know what, I've got my money, F this, because I think from here on out there is a lack of presence on Doom on albums that have his name on it. If you look at JJ Doom or the Bishop and everyone, it's like, okay, yeah, he's there, but he's not there. Like, what do you think happened after this time? After all this?
I'm not the biggest fan of of those kind of collaboration albums at all. I don't really like many of them. Like there was even, what was it, the EP last year that I think it was just a song or two with like Bad Not Good.
Oh, Bad Not Good.
The Chocolate Conquistadors. Yeah, like you mentioned, Sarface one, which released this year, wasn't very good. Yeah, I feel like the creative input, I feel like it was just there for like, hey, can you give us a couple of verses? And his heart wasn't really in it, but his name was on it.
Yeah, and the thing is, I feel like that's been happening since like 2009, probably earlier. So yeah, what do you think happened? Do you feel like he just lost motivation, or do you feel like what do you think happened?
I don't know. That's how you know I like Doom so much that I don't really want to speculate too much on it, because I just don't know. But if you're looking at it purely like subjectively, I think maybe he lost motivation, maybe lost the will to do it. I know a lot of other stuff was going on in his life. He obviously lost his son. I don't know what year that happened, but that would 100% impact upon your kind of like willingness to go into these things, especially given that it's a lot of like really like childlike stories and like cartoons and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how that might have affected him, like mentally going back into that state of like back in the studio, having lost your son.
I mean, he lost his son not recently, but in terms of his timeline, I think he lost within the past 3 years. Was that 3 years ago? It was quite recent. I think
it was more than that.
It wasn't like more than 5, if I remember. It wasn't that long ago. Double check that. Yeah, it wasn't that long. But so that's what I'm saying. So it was late 2010s, right? So so I think but I'm saying even before that, it just kind of feels like he was not phoning it in, but he wasn't the guy of old where it's like, oh my gosh, this guy can flow, and he's never bad, right? That's the thing, he's never been bad, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, he's just knocked out the park again. He's just pushing the boundaries again. So. Yeah, I think what you're saying, I think there's something to that. Obviously, at this point, you have a wife, you have a kid. It's like, okay, fuck this. Maybe you know, I kind of got what I wanted. Maybe I shouldn't do this as much anymore. Like, I'm not trying to be like on the cover of like Vogue, right? Like, I've got what I wanted. I've got the respect of my peers. Maybe I'm done. I think there is an element of that because I don't believe in skill vampires. I don't think one day you're like probably one of the best rappers on the planet, and the next day you're just all right. Like, I don't think that happens. I think people lose motivation. People just, you know, kind of put their feet on the pedal.
Yeah,
For sure.
that's fair. Yeah, it was 2017 he lost his son.
Yeah.
So 4 years ago. But yeah, who knows what happened? I hope no more projects come out with his name on it.
I don't think they will, to be fair.
Because although the legend of Doom isn't really going to be impacted by them too much, it just kind of it's kind of upsetting for people that start getting into music and they're like, oh, Doom, and the young kids will start listening to this crap
Featuring like, Juice WRLD and Pop Smoke.
This is not Doom. Like the last like Doom project we got was 2009.
Yeah.
And he obviously had a couple of singles with West Side Gun in 2016, which, you know, they weren't bad, but it's still not. I mean, it's not the Doom.
Yeah,
we know.
and before people are like West Side Gun in 2016. Keep the context, 2016. You know what I mean? But yeah, even as I said, the whole Doom thing, right? So there's one thing that people talk about now and then, and I think again probably ties into the whole motivation thing, right? So obviously, as a rapper, as J. Cole said, the way they get their bread is through touring. And Doom had this thing, right? Which is confirmed. If you listen to Dead End Hip Hop, Mike Seatown, he's been a victim of Doom's antics, where he will send a guy who actually isn't him to perform at these shows. I don't know what the success rate of that is, but it has happened. And there's videos on it online if you want to see. There's the vibe in this, right? Because some people are like, yeah, that's kind of fucked up. Like, people are paying all this money for your vinyls, they're paying money for your concerts, and you can't even come out to see them. What the hell? And there's some people who are like, oh, but it kind of adds to the whole Doom thing, right? Oh, he fucking tricked you. Holy shit. For me, I'm pissed off. I want to see the guy who...
If I'm there, I'm pissed off.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You might look back on it and be like, oh man, that's so weird. But like, if I paid money to go and see Doom, I want to see Doom, right? So what do you think? Like, do you feel like it kind of adds into the whole thing of, oh, I just can't be bothered
It's
anymore,
easy
mate?
to say that because, you know, it's obviously past the fact now. But even then, like, yeah, it's very, very easy to sit back and go, yeah, like, it just adds to the mystique, doesn't it? Like, that's just Doom all over, isn't it? That's just Doom in a nutshell. But then you're there, you've spent £100 probably to see Doom. You know, you're packed into like a really small venue. Mm-hmm. It's all sweaty in there. And then he comes on stage and you're like, I don't think that's Doom. That's not Doom.
That's not Doom.
And you're like, damn, he's conned us. So yeah, it's not funny if you get conned.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Not funny at all.
Especially us on this side of the States where artists don't come that often anyways, and it's like, oh my gosh, wow, I've waited like a couple of years maybe I've waited 3 years, 5 years for him to come. Holy shit, I'm gonna see Doom.
But you're not over there, you've got so many artists, you've probably seen the ones you don't even care about that much. And you're like, oh yeah, I saw them a couple of years ago at such and such. But I'm like, are you mad?
Yeah, especially like legacy artists, like they don't come often. You know what I mean? Like, for example, if Erica would do one on concert, I'll probably buy the ticket today. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm one of those people. But like with Doom, like, holy shit. Like, and I think, if you want to spend all that money, you definitely spend more money on this side of the river for American audiences. But like, I'll be pissed off, man. And I think it definitely adds. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, right? Like, you could not. I think there's this whole idea that people have thinking, oh, you're always gonna work every day to be great. That's rarely the case. Like, not everyone's Kendrick Lamar. Like, most people, once they get what they want from what they're doing, it's like, oh, what's the point? I mean, you see that in J. Cole, right? Fuck me, bro. Like, you see that in like every J. Cole.
Let's have one episode with that. Come on.
But like, do you know what I mean? I get it, but I think it's definitely affected. I think he's quite lucky because I think his first half of his career was so strong that his second half hasn't really watered it down at all, if I think so. Because most people don't even say it as a knock. But I think in terms of concert going and stuff like that, I think maybe that's something people look at and be like, oh man, that kind of sucks. Do you know what I mean? But
I agree. If you have 5 sensational studio albums, I mean, you can kind of forget about the other crap.
Yeah, for sure. Just kind of close it out now, because I think also we kind of talked about his personalities. We've talked about his songs, great songs. Pretty much every album we've talked about you should check out, especially everything before Food, like 100% recommended from us. I just looked at the Viktor Vaughn too. I do remember looking at that. I just haven't listened to it, but I do remember the cover. So maybe it's something I should check out as well. But in terms of influences, like you mentioned before, like Tyler and El Sweatshirt, there's that video, very popular, where like obviously this is the prime of the whole Odd Future movement, and they're just geeking out, right? Going crazy over Doom. In terms of rappers you listen to, like what rappers do you listen to? Do you feel like have such like a massive Doom influence when you listen to them? Or how do you feel it's kind of trickled down into today even?
Oof.
If you want to answer.
It's a good question. I'm not really sure. I think one good thing you mentioned earlier was like a lot of like UK rappers, even if they're not quite aware of it, like with the masks and like not just covering your face, but like particularly making little masks and stuff like that. That's 100% like Doom influenced. I'm not really sure. I think you've stumped me there. I should have had a little think about this. Who's kind of been influenced by him?
I'll throw a couple out just to kind of like get the blood flowing. So I think also one that I think probably people who listen to this type of podcast anyways will be familiar with is El Sweatshirt, right? I think he's definitely taken a huge turn in the second half of his career to be influenced in terms of sound, in terms of brevity and stuff like that, like focusing more on the lyrics. Definitely El Sweatshirt. Obviously Tyler, if you listen, I think a lot of people put Doom over the Sir Baudelaire instrumental. Obviously people doing that because I guess in terms of influence, they're closely related. I'd even say Drake, Lupe, Mos Def. Actually, I'll even go the other way, right? I think one thing that I've noticed is that when listening to Doom, he storytells almost exactly like Q-Tip. Like it's so similar. Like I don't know if anyone's ever picked it up, but like obviously I think it would make sense because at the time where Z Love X was coming out, right? Tribe was at the peak of their careers, and they were doing music that was like Tribe. So, and I think if you look at Operations Doomsday, the smoothest production he's ever had on the album, actually, very 90s, very early 90s in a sense, or maybe mid 90s to be fair. Very smooth production. I feel like you get that sense, but to kind of go the other way again, I think outside of that, if you're looking at like gangster rap or more like trap, you're probably not going to see that fair. But I think in terms of the underground scene, pretty much all of them, mate. Like pretty much all of them. I can't think of one who has some sort of Doom influence. That's also you mentioned before, IDK. Yeah, probably the biggest influence is probably Drake. Even if Drake doesn't have it in the way he raps, definitely in terms of production for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, like you're saying, like literally every single rapper has probably been listening to this when they were young, and whether you know it or not, their sound's probably influenced in some way.
Probably less so now because obviously now a lot of Zoomers are at the top of the game. Like I'm not gonna go to Roddy Ricch and be like, oh, do you know MF Doom, mate? Like he's not gonna know that shit, is it? Do you know what I mean?
That's
so
yeah, that's true. But yeah, that kind of wraps us up for this episode. Obviously, let us know on Twitter, Instagram, email as well if you've been a fan of Doom for a while. What kind of incarnation of him are you the biggest fan of? We'll even leave some questions. You can do that now on Spotify. You can ask questions to the audience.
Oh, we're going to do that? Okay, cool.
We'll ask a few questions.
Okay, cool.
And give us an answer if you can. But like we said, you can catch us on Twitter at TVC Pod. On Instagram, we are Vinyl Collective Pod. And email vinylcollectivepod@gmail.com. Don't forget to hit subscribe on YouTube. Also, obviously, subscribe on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcast, wherever you get your fix. And leave us a little review as well on Apple Podcast.
Cool.
But that's I feel like it's been coming a while.
Oh, 100%.
So it feels good to have had an hour of unadulterated Doom.
Rest in peace, Doom, man. Shout out to you.
Yeah. But as always, we obviously kind of finished the episode off with our Now and Then playlist. So simply because I haven't got my Now song, I'm going to try and throw it onto you, Tope.
Okay, cool. No worries. My Now song is Make It Out by Sedi Pizzazz. Joyce Rice, Nux, and K Cash.
Oh,
so this came out literally. If you guys saw, Joyce Rice came to London. She was here on Friday, and I think the song came out on that day. So big, steady for that Joyce Rice, Nux, and the guy called K Cash. Good song. Go and check it out. My Ven song. Oh, I don't know if it's a Ven, but I'm going to double check. It's a Ven. It's Crumbs by a guy called Jordan Dennis. So go and check that out.
Very good. Right. Okay, for my then song, simply because obviously Doom the legend, I'm gonna go for Lactose and Lecithin. This is probably the darkest song we have on this playlist now. But yeah, that's my then song. My now song is gonna be this is hard. Okay, I'm gonna go for guy new. Well, not new. He's kind of of the Nux group called Finn Foxell.
Okay.
And it was a colour show performance of a song called EOTM.
Cool.
But yeah, quite like a unique voice. I think he's a good rapper.
Cool. Go and check those out, guys.
Yeah, find that playlist obviously on Spotify called Now and Then 2, but obviously follow Now and Then 1 as well. Absolute banger. That wraps us up for today. Thanks for tuning in again. Another episode.
See you guys next week.